Do y'all recall ReCore? This action-adventure third-person shooter for PC and Xbone had a lot of hype leading up to its 2016 release as I remember it. In a desert world full of abandoned tech, hostile and friendly alike, you play as a survivor human girl named Joel, who's trying to make the planet livable. This game really grabbed my attention pre-launch and then fell off my radar completely until, a few days ago, as the crow flies. I spotted it on Game Pass and thought, oh yeah, whatever happened to ReCore? Turns out critics panned it as uninspired, repetitive, buggy, and just plain boring, which is a shame, because I really enjoyed its aesthetic. It struck a sort of Metroid meets Journey chord for me with a tinge of open world. So I decided to give the game a run at long last, mid-2021, to see if it deserved all the hate. And what I discovered was interesting. Described simply, it's a game that tried to do a lot and fell short, but not in as many places as its poor reviews would suggest. Now, to be clear, I'm playing the later released definitive edition of ReCore, which added more side content, fixed bugs, and very notably reduced load times. Far and away, the largest complaint I've seen in reviews of the original ReCore was the game taking upwards of 4 minutes to load between maps, and occasionally crashing during those loads. All that's been addressed in this re-release, so I'll be going forward not taking those issues into account for where ReCore stands today, but still acknowledging their rightful place in journalists of the time's ire. So, getting into the core of ReCore, your mission after waking up from hundreds of years of cryo-sleep deep space travel is to terraform the planet Far Eden for survivors of an apocalyptic virus on Earth called Dust Devil. That hits different these days, doesn't it? Alongside you are these core bots, robots with personalities and specialized skill sets for completing different tasks. However, instead of waking up to engineers and robots working together to bring greener pastures to this wasteland, you're attacked by some of the up until now friendly core bots and find much of the initial scaffolding of civilization's new structure in ruins. Now, the energy source, which was theoretically supposed to power humanity, are these cores, glowing orbs in a variety of flavors, but mysterious prismatic orbs occupying all of the colors simultaneously prove particularly powerful. So your goals in order are locate the rest of humanity, discover why the core bots have turned on you, and unlock the enigmas of the prismatic cores to restart the colonization attempt. Simple. This setup and plot is honestly the most interesting part of the entirety of ReCore. The ideas being explored here on their own aren't anything unique, deep space travel, robots turn on humans, but the perspective on offer is a fresh one. The colorful cores each symbolize a personality trait purposefully assigned to them, serving better in different chassis for different tasks. Red is bravery, yellow is reservedness, and blue is cheerfulness, with enemies offering mixes upon these concepts. This idea is not only inherent to the story, offering different personalities in the bots you meet along the way, but is the structure of the battles in-game. The game's combat is very straightforward third-person shooting, with the left trigger on controller locking onto enemies near perfectly, allowing you to rapid-fire and charge shots of your infinite but cooldown-based ammunition. You've got 4 types of ammo too, your default white, powerful fiery red, cover my eyes electric blue, and slow but strong yellow. Enemies are also categorized into these colors, alongside mixed colors in orange, purple, and green, and prismatic enemies who can shift their colors over time. Matching enemies' color to your rifle's color will boost your damage, meaning you'll want to use the D-pad to shift back and forth between colors as you go. Now, if you're colorblind, the HUD does show directional arrows corresponding to the color's location on the D-pad above the enemy's health. However, in intense combat with multicolored enemies coming from multiple directions, this isn't exactly a great solution. Side note, by the way, the game features audio logs which detail the lead up to humanity ending up on Far Eden in the first place. They're an interesting listen and all, but while the rest of the game is subtitled, these audio logs are not. Accessibility is a bit shaky in ReCore, so buyer beware. Still, I appreciate that they tried. Regardless, where was I? The color-coded combat in this battle system has Metroid Prime inspirations clear as a desert's day, which is logical given one of the 2 studios behind development of ReCore was Armature Studio, founded by former Metroid Prime 3 devs. Very new to this game though is the core pulling mechanic. When enemy shields are down and their health below a certain marked point, you can press in on the right stick to enter a tug of war for their core, pulling back only when the rope doesn't glow red. If you win, uninterrupted by other enemies, you'll earn their core, which can be used to upgrade your own core bots. On top of this, as you and your companion bots battle, you'll rack up a combo. At a combo of 10 or higher, you'll unlock the ability to instant pull a core from an enemy regardless of health, bypassing the fishing-esque minigame. Doing so will end your combo, but also detonate the enemy, damaging everyone around them. If you save up to a combo of 15, you can also store the instant pull for later, even after your combo ends. Useful, given that the game likes to separate out enemy spawns just long enough to end your combo prematurely. I've seen the core pulling mechanic frequently critiqued, saying it's repetitive and padding. I personally disagree. Given that it's so simple and intuitive, I find myself mixing it into the midst of combat without issue and enjoying it at that. I do wish, however, that the game made it clearer earlier on that pulling an enemy's core means that enemy will only give you their core and not any crafting components. For that, you have to fully gun them down. This combat is honestly pretty simple, and considering dying has no consequence, simply respawning you at the beginning of the room, progress maintained, most fights are fun, if mundane. I say most because occasionally the game will throw reason out of the window, trap you in a room with radiation constantly sapping your health and enemies which hit stun you over and over. The only way to heal is to score an instant pull on a core, and of course, in these cases, dying starts you at the beginning of the fight instead of in media res. Every now and again, the game will throw any difficulty mod it has available at you just to see what sticks, and it sucks. There's no challenge to overcome, it becomes a plethora of button mashing while you hope for RNG-based effects from your weapons to kick in. At best, ReCore's combat is straightforward but enjoyable, and at worst, it made me nearly put the game down entirely. However, combat only makes up half of what ReCore is offering. Exploration via 3D platforming marks the rest of the gameplay, using your friendly core bots to reach new heights by flying, climbing, smashing, and dashing through deserts and dungeons. A helpful marker shows the ground directly underneath Jewel, making some of the more challenging platforming segments less obnoxious. I will say, while Jewel's movement feels very precise and predictable, as in controlling very well, the world itself often disagrees with you. I'll sometimes go flying off platforms or through walls, or get stun-locked between electric barriers and find myself dead and just waiting to hit the ground. Some of the later levels get downright intense with the platforming difficulty, introducing gates you have to move through to regain your dash and double jump, laser platforms, disappearing blocks. This feels like 3D platforming in a very literal sense, in that the game plays like a 2D side-scroller but with a third dimension, specifically a Mega Man sort of vibe. More on that in a moment, with small footing over bottomless pits, lasers to avoid, moving platforms, and like how Rush in Mega Man offers the titular character different options for movement, so do Jewel's core bots in ReCore. So get this, I swear I didn't know this when I started making this video. The astute among you may have noticed I didn't mention who developed ReCore at the start of the vid, as I typically do when I analyze games. That's because I wanted to save the reveal of the second team behind this game being Concept, aka the developers of Mighty Number 9, another critically bashed BattleBot game of which I made a similar style of video a couple years back, linked above and below. KJ Inafune was at it again, and once again, the dots simply didn't seem to connect for him and his team. However, given that Metroid Prime and Mega Man devs teamed up to create ReCore, it's no wonder I can so easily draw parallels in their design, and that's by no means a bad thing. However, in the switch from Mega Man's traditional side-scrolling state and Mighty Number 9's side-steppable state, ReCore falters at making all the ideas it wishes to explore work within the shell of a 3D platformer. You're sent all over Far Eden in search of prismatic cores, and you'll often need to go out of your way to branch out of the story to get enough cores to unlock the next area. Some of these quests have you searching all over the very samey looking grounds for core bots to plug into doors, platforms, or some other junk as power sources. These are marked on the map, but any non-story quests don't have 3D in-world waypoints to locate them with. The constant opening and closing of the map to find these tiny things made me realize just how wild it is this game doesn't have a mini-map. It'd fit right in on the HUD and make things all the less tedious. ReCore was trying to be a 3D action platformer meets chill exploration game, but it doesn't mesh these two designs as well as a game like Breath of the Wild would later do. The times when these mechanics work best together are the dungeons, most of them optional, where you're timed and tasked with finding hidden switches and keycards to get better rewards at the end. These are meant to be learned and replayed in a speedrun sort of fashion. Running through these platforming and/or combat challenges was satisfying, especially with prizes of health upgrades and new parts for your bots. This is one of the most unique features of the game to me, and I wish it was explored further. Taking the cores, your friendly bots' consciousnesses, and placing them in different frames to get variations on their combat abilities is such a cool idea. It's also a good way to get around the problem of having different companion characters become irrelevant as better companions surface, since they're the same characters just with different bodies. However, the crafting system allowing you to upgrade and customize those robot frames is a bit bloated rather than helpful. It often feels like gathering components to craft is more tedious than having the frames themselves be available in chests instead of just blueprints, and having to swing by fast travel checkpoints and your home base constantly to drop off your limited inventory worth of supplies is downright obnoxious. But mixing and matching the bots and cores, that I like. ReCore is a game that had me saying to myself, "Oh, I see what you're trying to do," a lot, rather than actually doing. It feels trapped between genres, not committing to third-person shooter, exploration game, platformer, or dungeon crawler. Instead, dipping its toes into all of them a little bit and doing a better job at some than others. A place this is fairly clear is in the game's narrative when presented outside of cutscenes. The first few hours of the game are chock full of dialogue, leaning more to the action-adventure side of things than serene exploration. However, once you make your way to optional parts of the world aside from audio logs, the game goes dead silent, feeling like it's intended to be a relaxed platformer while still dropping bits of fast-paced combat in dialogueless drab. At first, I was wishing for the game to honestly shut up, but by the end of it, I wanted it to tell me more. I guess that comes with having such an interesting story in a shell of a game that doesn't quite match up to it. However, it's not all bad. Some of these mechanics I've seen done better in other games, sure, but I enjoyed getting to know Seth, Mac, and Duncan. I had fun speedrunning through dungeons to try and get the top tier reward at the end. It's clunky, but not broken, so long as it's the definitive edition of ReCore we're discussing here. My biggest gripes would be the lack of variety in scenery. Drab deserts grow tiresome pretty quick, the occasional outlandish difficulty spike, and just a slew of little things which add up to make a less than satisfactory experience. No minimap, glitchy cutscenes, poor animations, and that same BS radiation being draped lazily across any areas where the game wishes you to avoid. Not to mention one optional dungeon I had constant crashes in, despite definitive edition's improvements. All that said, platforming, working with the core bots, unfolding the story, and discovering secrets are all fairly satisfying, in a way which other games have done better, but not ever with quite the unique flavor ReCore had. I would never have paid full price for this game. It's too glitchy and repetitive still, definitive as it may be, but on sale or on Game Pass, there's still something there. You might enjoy it if you're a fan of, say, Breath of the Wild, but with a better story, or Mass Effect Andromeda with slightly more functional gameplay. So did the game deserve its poor reviews? As it released originally, unfortunately, yes. A game can't sustain itself on an interesting story alone when the gameplay to bridge the gaps is too shaky. But with some of the more prominent issues ironed out, solid platforming most of the time, interesting if frustrating combat, and at a cheaper price, ReCore deserves a replay. If you don't like it, that's fair, but if nothing else, I hope you can appreciate what it was trying to do. And it certainly turned out better than Mighty Number 9. That'll be everything, and hey, maybe follow me on Twitter if you enjoy what I do. Either way, thanks for watching, stay safe, and take it easy.